In 1863, President Abraham Lincoln, in his famous Gettysburg Address, declared that government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from this earth. But as we progress through the 21st century, this influence of the people has begun to deteriorate. In my home state of South Carolina, I don't feel very represented by my governor, Henry McMaster, who said this 2 years ago during a gubernatorial debate.
But maybe I'm old-fashioned, but I think that marriage ought to be between a man and a woman.
As a gay person, I don't feel represented by him at all, and neither do a majority of other South Carolinians, over 53% of whom support keeping gay marriage legal. This isn't just a personal feeling, it's a measurable, documented reality, and political think tanks and watch groups have begun to sound the alarm. The United States is currently rated 3.3 out of 5 on the Authoritarian Threat Index, indicating a severe threat to democracy. And the Economist Democracy Index has considered us a flawed democracy, leading experts and voters alike to wonder, what's wrong with American democracy? First, there's the gap in policy. A key aspect of democracy is that elected officials are expected to vote and act in the best interest of their electorate. But what happens when they don't? Over 80% of Americans favor legalizing marijuana federally. Yet, as Cannabis Business Times reported, the most recent House bill to do just that barely passed 220 to 204, meaning nearly half of voting members disagree with a policy 80% of voters support. According to the Pew Research Center, 63% of voters believe that abortion should be legal, but not a single bill protecting this right has been able to pass in the Senate. The Equality Act, which would provide non-discrimination protection for LGBTQ individuals, is supported by 75% of voters. But the Senate has filibustered and killed this bill every time. This isn't just a few cherry-picked examples. Political scientists Jeffrey Lachs and Justin Phillips call this a democratic deficit. In their article for the American Journal of Political Science, they studied 39 different political issues and found that political policy was only congruent with the majority opinion half of the time. This failure to represent the will of the people undermines the very ideas of democracy. So why does this happen? Part of the answer is that politicians simply don't know what their voters want. Research by David Brockman and Chris Scorvon found that politicians from both parties dramatically overestimate their constituents' support for conservative policies. This misalignment means they can't accurately reflect the views of their voters, creating a massive distance between the government and the people. This disconnect isn't just about policy, it's about identity. The U.S. Senate is currently 83% white, even though the U.S. population is only 59% white. When specific ethnic and racial groups don't have representation, the issues that directly affect them can be completely ignored. Age-wise, while the U.S. Census Bureau reports the median age of Americans at about 39, the average age in the House of Representatives is 58, and in the Senate, 64. People who haven't set foot in a school in half a century are setting education standards. But the biggest gap of all is money. As reported by Quartz, the average U.S. Congress member is 12 times richer than the typical American household. For years, some argued this didn't matter, but research by Dr. Martin Gillens of Princeton University shatters that myth. He found that affluent Americans are far better represented in federal policymaking than low-income individuals. This means the interests of the affluent dominate policy, while lower-income groups are alienated and their influences diminished. When Congress is composed of the very wealthy, they ensure the economy works for them. This disconnect in both policy and demographics is held in place by a third, more permanent problem: the structure of our government. Take gerrymandering. This is the process of unethically redrawing voting districts to provide an unfair electoral advantage to one party. Writing for the University of Chicago, Nicholas Stephanopoulos and Eric McGee introduced the concept of the efficiency gap, which measures how many votes are wasted in an election. Their research concluded that this has resulted in the most extreme gerrymanderers in history, which, in the words of researcher Jamie Saxon, distorts demographic representation and undermines confidence in government. Furthermore, there's the Electoral College. This system allows a candidate to become president without receiving a majority of the popular votes. In 2016, Donald Trump won the presidency despite not having a majority of Americans vote for him. This phenomenon, where the less popular candidate wins, fundamentally distorts the will of the people. Finally, there's the Senate. The Senate structure gives 2 senators to every state regardless of their population, making it a primary source of political inequality. Dr. John Griffin argues that this allows residents of less populated states to have more voting weight. A state with 40 million voters and a state with 400,000 both get 2 votes. Researchers found this skews policy, as coalition builders in the Senate tend to seek out smaller states, giving them a disproportionate influence. American democracy faces serious challenges. We have seen that the government consistently fails to enact policies that align with the majority opinion, a problem compounded by elected officials who are disproportionately white, older, and wealthier than the public they serve. These policy and demographic gaps are cemented in place by fundamental structural flaws like gerrymandering, the Electoral College, and unequal Senate apportionment, which together systematically dilute the power of the individual vote. These documented deficits in policy, identity, and structure suggest that the government has drifted away from the ideal of being of the people, by the people, for the people. The challenge of the 21st century, then, is to bridge this disconnect, ensuring that political power genuinely resides in the hands of the citizens who it was always promised.